I was originally only going to put it together and test fit everything in here, but then I ended up having to build it in here. So I apologize in advance for the fact that I have not and will not be able to show everything. I am trying to show as much as I can easily, but I'm running out of time. I have 5 days to get that together and running in a car if I'm going to make it to a show that I want to take it to this year. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Try to stay with me. By the end of this video, that engine will run for the first time since 1980. I took it back apart and cleaned it really good. I'm putting it together. I dug around and found down at the house this Motors Auto Repair Manual from 1970. 67 through 96 main bearing cap bolts. It's got a 5 here. A 5, 2 bolt main, 95 foot-pounds. 4 bolt main, 105. May have to take a couple of the center ones out later and put the ones I have that have studs for a windage tray in it. I decided not to show putting the pistons down in it. All 8 rods and pistons, rings, bearings, everything is in it. The main caps are tight and the rod bolts are tight. Crane Fireball S326 D82. So the cam's in it. It's some time. The passenger side head's on it. Torque down. I'll show cleaning that head up a little bit. Wiping its valves in. But I don't have valve springs on this yet because I don't have the ones I'm going to run to break it in. I need an oil pump. And the only one I have is this one. That's in great shape. So I'm going to take a die grinder and try to get the brass off of the seam so I can get that pickup tube out of the pump. Got the brass ground off and cleaned up the oil pump the best I can because, well, you know, weld won't stick to brass. When I put a pickup back in that, I'm going to weld. The oil pump gears are great. Oil pump housing is in great shape. Supposedly, this is a LS6 factory oil pump. And supposedly, they came with the pickup tube braced in. But it doesn't do me any good like that. I have to use it. So I'm adjusting the timing cover for the cam button. I figured I'd show you a little bit of this. I know I haven't showed very much when it comes to this engine, but a hammer's involved. I got that adjusted. It's not a roller cam, it's just something we wanted it to have. I put the balancer on it and the timing cover on it. I haven't been able to show very much putting this together because I'm running out of time. This is Sunday, and next Saturday I'm going to a car show in town, and I'm trying to get this engine to where I can have it in the car and take it. So all that's together. Windage trays on it, oil pump, new pickup tube. I had to do a little bit of something there. I got it sealed up. It's got a crank scraper on it. It's got the new gaskets. I sealed everything. There looks like there's a lot of silicone there, but there really isn't. Now I'm going to put the oil pan on. Well, the oil pan's on it. I went ahead and I had deepened that oil pan. What I did is I didn't have a second Chevelle oil pan. I bought that one at a swap meet, and it was a cheap side kick out Chinese oil pan. I cut all that off, ground all the welds off and everything, and took the bottom of a big block Impala oil pan, the sump of it, which was probably about 2.5, 3 inches, and I put it up against the bottom of that one, and the oil pan's about 2.5. It's about 2.5 inches deeper than a stock oil pan. And we did that, welded it, siliconed it, all that stuff. The reason that I wanted to do that, I know the right way to do that would have been to buy one. Or the right way to do that would have been really leave it alone. But Dad had a 427 that he deepened the oil pan by putting a band in it and even brazed it. He didn't have a welder, so he brazed it. And it leaked a little bit, of course, so he took silicone and put around it, and that's a tribute to that engine. Done good with sealant like that, it never leaks. I touched it up. It's been on there for 2 days. I touched it up with some paint, and now the oil pan's good. All the bolts are in the oil pan. Gaskets, seals, sealant. Everything's tight. Oil pump's on it. Window tray's tight. All the stuff inside that engine is torqued down and it's tight. Yesterday you seen me put the timing cover on it and the balancer on it. Tap in the valves for that head, just like I did this head. You can see they're not perfect, but they're not bad. That engine's just set forever. You know, if it's set 40 years and the valves rusted some and everything. Before I put this head on, I'm going to stick a few bolts in the balancer. Put my magnetic dial indicator back on here and check for top dead center on that piston. I'm making sure that that line and that balancer lines up with 0 on that tab. Then I can put the head on it. I would have really enjoyed, and I would have liked being able to show more putting that engine together, because I feel like some of you would have enjoyed seeing that, and I wanted to show it. I know not everybody's going to make it through this video, but I hope that the ones that do understand that if I could have showed more, I would have, but I had to get this together. So I hope you enjoy the rest of this video, and I hope you have enjoyed it to this point. Well, I said I was going to try to show you some of this. This is the last exhaust valve I've got to put in. Now, if you can see the seats, and I doubt it, you see how the intake was rusty and everything. Well, they're all like that. I think you can see it. Taking a drill. You can run it backwards some if you want to too. See how nice and shiny that is now. The seat is clean too. I'll show you some more in a second. I'm going to put some of that oil. You know, this is a lot easier with 2 hands. Put some of the oil on the stem. Putting it back in the guide. I wiped off the seat and the valve really good. What we're using for springs are some old Ford valve springs that are weak. Try to help make sure the cam breaks in without wiping out a lobe. Put the umbrella seal on. I'll show you this once I've got that on there, but I cannot do that with one hand. Alright. This is pretty much why I haven't been showing this very much. Can't Anyway, all that's left is that one intake valve. Hope you've got some enjoyment out of my struggle here, but I wanted to show you. You can just about open the valve. I needed some head bolts, and I cleaned them some. I torqued these down. There was a couple hour break that I did some things that didn't show you. Still in the middle of extending the slots and the rockers, because I don't know if any of them on this side I can show you or not, but okay. See that at the end of my finger? That's where the rocker arms have swung into it here. They haven't all done that, but a few of them did. So I'm taking the die grinder and marking them, you know, just reaming them a little bit so they don't hit. I got a bolt that I'm going to use as a drain plug for the oil pan. Probably going to cut it about right here. That's a lot bigger than most oil pans use, but this oil pan had stripped the drain plug, and I drilled it and tapped it bigger, and that's the size it happened to be. I forget what size exactly that was, but gotta find a oil filter stuff. This is one of those that have the canister with the cartridge on the inside that you take out and replace, because it's a 67 block. Either one of these two things, the intake or the carburetor, is unique enough by itself. That carburetor's not just on there crooked. I always call that a twisted torquer intake, because the new ones aren't. But what's different about this carburetor, unless you know what this is, it'll look like this normal Holly. But this ain't normal for a normal Holly. Normal Hollies, if they have a choke, they're through the center of it. So what's this stuff, you know? And a better question is what's that? What are those? Holly 3-barrel. They were vacuum secondaries. And I reckon they only made them for a few years. Great big damn carburetor. Well, it's time I put some oil in it. I have half a case of this old Quaker State left, so I figured I'd put 4 quarts in it and fill it up the rest of the way with some Joe Gibbs driven that we've had for years. I've also put a lot of cam break-in lubricant on the cam and lifters, so there should not be a shortage of zinc and phosphorus in this engine. I got the intake bolted down, so unfortunately I had to buy new bolts for the intake. But I got that bolted on and helicoiled the intake. So now all the threads are good for the carburetor. Put the thermostat housing back down on it and these 2 plugs. I have to get a plug for this and the water pump for the crossover. Tomorrow we're taking the engine out of this and I'm going to try to get that one back down in here. So the next day I can start putting it back in, you know, finishing it. I guess the very first thing I'll do is take down the exhaust and take out the drive shaft, then take out the transmission, you know, cross member, transmission, bell housing, probably clutch and pressure plate just to make it lighter. Then get up on top of it and take all the bolts out of the headers. And then unhook the 2 or 3 pieces of wiring that's on it. Lift the engine up. So it should be pretty easy, pretty quick to get it out. I know it would be if it was down there on the building in the concrete, but I wanted to do this outside. It's likely to rain tomorrow, but if it does, I have a canopy, I have tarps, I have plywood. I'll get it out. So I'll see you then. I know I said it once before, but I hope you have enjoyed the video to this point, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it. We're lifting the motor out.
Today in 1970.
The duck's lifting the motor out. We're lifting it out with this.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the wrong side.
Today would have been a pretty good day to show something, but with me getting help out here, and we took the engine out of the Chevelle outside with a cherry picker on the bed of the truck, on the back bumper of that truck. Reached in here and put down the old motor and picked up the motor. I put this engine that I put together and put it in the car. And everything, when you're doing something like that, everything's difficult enough without adding in a camera. It's heavy. I hope to never have that much weight inside this garage again, because in this little shed again, because I had both big blocks in here at the same time and the floor was creaking. So before I'm actually done with that engine, I want it underneath that workbench in that corner. back of it facing the wall. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but down there in the garage, I have the manifolds, the power steering pump. I have everything that was on that engine when I took it out of the truck. And I'm going to put every bit of it back on it. Put it over there in that corner. Fill the cylinders up with oil. It's not stuck, but fill the cylinders up with oil. And wrap it in plastic. And just keep it. So, hopefully tomorrow, when I'm here, putting the transmission back up in the car, flywheel, clutch and pressure plate, bell housing, drive shaft, and then finishing everything under the hood. Hopefully I'll be able to show you some more then, but that's enough, you know. See you tomorrow. The engine's down in it. Headers are on it. Spark plugs are in it. Front accessory drives on it. Have to put the radiator in it. Eventually, I'll change the pulleys and alternator and bracket, because that's the stuff off my engine, and this one needed its own stuff. But only thing that's staying is the water pump. So I adjusted the valves. I've got it roughly about 5 degrees before top dead center. So when I put the distributor in it, I'll have it barely opening the points, and that should put it close enough to crank right up. So, and the fuel pump's hooked up. I'm undecided, but I'm thinking about running the fuel line from the fuel pump up to the fender to a cool can that I have, or even down in here, you know, one of those ice cans, and then up to the carburetor. But anyway, I'll be back in a minute. I'm about to put the flywheel and transmission and all that back up in it. Let's see. Today, I put all this on it, adjusted the valves. It would be firing number 1 right now, so when I drop the distributor in it, that part's ready to run. I've got to put the valve covers down on it. And I've put the transmission, drive shaft, and cross member and all that stuff back in it. Boy, that oil pan is low, ain't it? But pretty much the same height as the headers. You know, this car ain't lowered, so it should be alright. Probably will take me an hour around it tomorrow, and we should be cranking this thing up. So this video shouldn't be too much longer. I know it's it's one of the longest ones I've made in a very long time. So I hope you just like it. Also, we're gonna fire it up open headers. So I guess we'll get to see how it sounds. I'll see you tomorrow. Alright, so everything's on it. It's got oil, full of water, fuel pump's hooked up, carburetor's full of gas. We're about to crank it up.
Let's give it a dose. Hope it start.
Ready?
Yeah. Hang on, man. Got a screwdriver.
Yeah.
Flat screwdriver.
Cranked on the first try.
Yeah. I'm gonna speed it up. How we're gonna get that?
Well, you know, seeing it crank. And it ran okay, but it was flooding bad. It was pig rich. The gaskets in that carburetor are dry. They're rotten too. So I'm going to try to come up with a few gaskets. But the car ran. I think it was flooding so bad it chalked the tire. So I'm going to end this video here. I couldn't leave it at that. I had to show you that it does run right. Found a kit for the carburetor, well, a couple gaskets.